the UN Security Council passed a resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza.
Oh, only 7 months later.
But this was,
30,000 people dead, 2 million displaced.
True.
Better
all
late
of that.
than
Yeah,
never.
I mean, better late than never. And again, it's something that, people
How
have been
regrettable
calling-
is that, though, that this could have been done with haste and at the,
yes.
you know what I mean, before 2.3 million people
definitely were displaced.
Yeah.
And, again, I mean, I think that it is, as we look back, particularly because of the loss of life, the loss of children's lives, you see people like starving right now. Obviously, the world could have reacted sooner. And
I think the world reacted promptly.
I was going to say, and
the
more
world-
so,
yeah.
the United States, who had previously vetoed much, anytime that the ceasefire came up, they would utilize their veto in protection of Israel. Now it seems they're saying there's tension now between the U.S. and Israel, and we've kind of seen that play out over the last week. We saw, Chuck Schumer, who is the highest ranking Jewish politician ever, right, as the head of the Senate, basically called Netanyahu somebody that is, what's the terminology he used? A stumbling block towards peace, something to that regard. You know what I'm saying? Somebody that had been previously very supportive of Netanyahu in the state of Israel. We saw, VP Kamala Harris call for a ceasefire. And President Biden, in his letter during Ramadan, called for a ceasefire. Now that we finally have it on a UN, I'm sorry.
Who would have thought Kamala would have done it before Joe?
I looked at Miracle's face. Okay, so I'm coming to you, Farouk. Now that we have it done on a United Nations level, right?
Which is just another toothless facade that sits in Geneva on their castle, casting aspersions at other nations.
So you don't think this is going to have any type of effect on?
When has the UN
what's
ever been
happening?
able to hold anybody to anything? The most they could offer up is a binding resolution and some harsh words.
Correct.
Right, and that's it. They're toothless. It's really just like placed there as just a puppet.
Well, I think that's how people feel, right?
Yes.
Because the UN has been critical.
I am people.
The UN has been very critical throughout this process,
words.
right? But that criticalness, or that the calling out of the different things that Israel's doing, many whom feel reach the level of war crimes, has not stopped Netanyahu and Israel from continuing to go into Rafah, continuing to destroy mosques and schools and hospitals and all of those things. And so I'm coming to you, Miracle, now. Where does this go? Is this maybe the world now isolating Netanyahu? If Biden and Harris and Schumer are all coming out and saying Netanyahu needs to stop this madness, to the point that apparently he just canceled his trip to the United States to address, Congress, will this have some type of effect on the possibility of Israel getting new leadership and a new direction coming in regards to what we see happening in Israel and Palestine? Deep breath, Miracle.
This is about process and people trying to reclaim that international law matters.
Yes.
When we have seen for the past 6 months, it has been an abject failure.
Yes.
The ceasefire resolution now lays the groundwork for other states to recognize Palestine as an official state, to possibly kick Israel out of the UN, similar to what happened with South Africa and apartheid. And it allows for other nations to stop doing future arms deals with Israel. However, we have given them so many weapons and so many guns that
they're good forever.
The ceasefire really does not stop the violence that's going to be happening to the Palestinian people. What we need, as we talk about these we don't even know how long the ceasefire is, because it says for the period of Ramadan. That's just another couple of weeks.
Right.
They originally said they were doing a 6-week humanitarian pause.
Yes.
So we may have even gotten something shorter than what we've been demanding for the past 6 months. So we don't even know really what this ceasefire looks like. we have said for many of us, this is a political problem. Netanyahu is a reflection of not only the U.S. government, but international organizations who refuse to sit there and say, we need to move into the 21st century.
Right.
We need to have better ways to engage and incorporate people that we do not view as human, whose religions that we do not respect,
right.
whose cultures don't matter to us.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
What we are dealing with is one of the worst humanitarian atrocities that we've ever seen.
Yes.
On top of trying to figure out how to help people in Sudan and the Congo and in, South and Latin America, we have created all of this violence. And it seems that it all came to a head in 2024. What was happening in Palestine, the crisis at the border, the inflation, everything was connected. And we've seen that we need something to change. And hopefully today is like the first step to be like, you know what, we can't live like this anymore. But what I'm fearful of is Netanyahu and co, right? Basically being like, we're going to do it. We're going to do it anyways. And doing a full-scale invasion of Rafah just because there's nobody to tell them no.
So this is, just to touch on this, what they said, and you mentioned it. It says the resolution put forward demands an immediate ceasefire for the month of Ramadan, the immediate and unconditional release of hostages, and, quote, the urgent need to expand the flow of aid into Gaza. The UN Secretary General said a failure to implement the resolution will be, quote, unforgivable. And so at that point, I think, like you said, I mean, if Netanyahu was to basically say, I'm going to do it anyway, you're doing it in the face of now like the world saying enough is enough. And maybe that because again, like you're right in terms of reflection of U.S. policy, but we do now see, these particularly like this was the question around the Democratic Party and what would they be willing to do in the face of this. Now we're seeing them kind of take a stand, albeit, like you said, very, 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 very late in the game. Yeah. Right. Taking a stand. So, but it's going to be, I guess. And then this is also, in response, I saw a tweet today as when Pennsylvania goes to the polls in April 23rd, people are saying vote uncommitted again. Right. Yeah. So this is in response to a lot of these folks saying uncommitted and really like the younger demographic saying we're not interested in voting for the status quo because like you said, Miracle, I mean, it's hard to get into the 21st century when the people running for president are 81 and 78. I mean, it's like, how do we get there?
Relics from the early 20th century.
Yes, and so you were going to say, Fruit.
What are they going to do that's going to be some really like that has any teeth, right? And that's the thing. Like, so thumbing your nose at U.S. policy, at foreign policy, at global affairs, whatever, that's what they've been doing. So nothing is new.
Well, what the new part of it is that they were doing it with the United States as an ally.
With the support,
so they were doing it with...
So now what, they don't have front-facing support? Now it gets done behind closed doors?
Well, now you don't have... Exactly. You do not have front-facing support. For instance, like we said...
But it's still support.
Well, Netanyahu just canceled his visit. The national security spokesman, John Kirby, basically said, we're disappointed they will not be coming to Washington, D.C. to allow us to have a fulsome conversation about viable alternatives to going in on the ground in Rafah. So here is now, like, from the highest levels of our, the White House, the Senate, what we're seeing is, American foreign policy saying, we do not want you to do these things. And if they do it now with the world saying this, you have it to where they are isolated on a world stage. And so again, does that mean they're not going to do it? I mean, you said, Netanyahu has the weapons. He obviously he said he's going to go into Rafah anyway. And because he wants to quote unquote finish the job, but maybe this is setting up some type of possibility that Israel can have new leadership. Trouble, as somebody, you're a young person who has been looking at this and watching it, through social media lenses. Like, how do you see what's happening in Israel-Palestine just in general? And what do you think about, the United States being more forceful in its decisions towards Netanyahu and the current leadership of Israel.
So, like, overall, I feel like the whole issue is wild. It's nuts. I don't think that genocide is ever okay or justified in any way. I also think, like, I agree with Farouk when he says that the UN's response is mad late. You know what I'm saying? And from hearing what you read about what, you know, they said the reasoning was, it's like, so you mean to tell me that, like, you were okay with 30,000 plus people dying, millions of people being displaced, but once Ramadan come around, you have sympathy,